G'day, Aces fans. Nick Batters with you. Over the last few weeks, we've re-signed some of our core Australian players, and there's still plenty more to come over the next couple of months. But right now, let's introduce you to the newest import, the newest member of the Melbourne Aces. From San Diego, California, welcome to the Melbourne Aces, Mr. Bennett Perry. Bennett, how are you doing?
I'm doing good. Thanks for having me. I'm excited.
Thanks so much. So, you're a pitcher. Take us through your professional career. What major league organization did you pitch in? How have you gotten to this point in your career where you're headed down under to play in the Australian Baseball League?
Yeah, I was drafted by the Baltimore Orioles in 2011.
Okay.
It would have been, was with them for about five. I think I got released in my sixth spring training. Then went and played indie ball for a little bit, played in the American Association. Then went and played in the Atlantic League. Then got some opportunities to play internationally. So played in Taiwan, and I think it was around that time was the first time I was contacted by teams in Australia about playing winter ball. At that time, I was already committed to go play winter ball in Venezuela. Then ended up playing in Mexico for a season, and everything was going good and was enjoying my career. And then the pandemic happened, which I mean a lot of people can probably relate to. Kind of ruined some plans, and so then took off that year, and then was getting ready to go pitch in this current season in the off season, and I don't know, it was just wasn't quite feeling it, I guess, and
Sure.
Decided that I thought I was kind of ready to move on to the next chapter of my life, and so I decided to not play this year, and got into coaching, got into some other opportunities, and about a month or two into that, realized I might have jumped the gun a little bit, and still kind of had that itch to play, and that fire was starting to come back. So started reaching out to teams, and I had talked to a few Australian teams in the past and reached out to some of the contacts I had made, and luckily, is it Melbourne or Melbourne?
Melbourne.
How do you pronounce Melbourne?
Melbourne, yeah.
Melbourne. Fortunately, got back to me, and we started talking for a while, and then we came to an agreement. I was excited about that. So.
Awesome. We're really glad to have you. You mentioned it. You grew up in Southern California, spent time with the Baltimore Orioles organization on the East Coast. You mentioned Mexico, Taiwan. You've played all over the place. What have you learned from playing international baseball, really all across the world?
I think one of the fascinating things is how every culture I've kind of been a part of kind of views the game a little bit differently. It's subtle things that you might not realize unless you were in it every day, but just like the everyday, the way they go about their work, I think is kind of interesting. And I don't think there's any necessarily right or wrong ways. It's all different. So I think accumulating as much of that as possible kind of can only make you better, because you see so many different, you have to adapt to so many different circumstances. And I think part of being a good pitcher and a good athlete is knowing how to adapt and adjust, in game or in season, whatever it is. So I think that's been valuable. Everywhere I've gone, I've had a great experience, and all the places I've played, the fans have been great, and the community has been nothing but nice. And I got to a point probably in 2017, 2018 where, obviously everyone's dream is to play in the big leagues, and, I'd still have to do that. But, I saw making a career just playing internationally, like that would be a fun experience. It would be, it'd be good. And I kind of embraced that and wish that I kind of could have kept that going. Like I said, obviously the pandemic kind of threw a wrench into that, but so I'm excited to kind of get that going again with going to a new place. I've never been to Australia.
Sure.
So I'm excited about that.
Well, there's lots to look forward to about playing in Australia. Obviously, Melbourne probably going to be at the top of your list in terms of places you've played once this upcoming season is over. But prior to this season, we'll say both in the United States, in minor league or independent baseball, but also internationally, what are a couple of cities that have been your favorites to play in to this point in your career?
That's tough. I've been all over. I loved everywhere in Taiwan. I loved everywhere in Mexico. So if I were just to stay on the trend of just all the international places, I've played in affiliate ball. I always liked anytime we went to any of the North Carolina places. I always liked Greensboro and Asheville and Hickory and Kannapolis, and always kind of enjoyed those trips. They're a little bit far of a bus ride, but enjoyed those. In the indie ball leagues, love playing in Long Island, love playing in the Midwest and Lincoln, Nebraska, and Kansas City and just kind of traveling throughout the country. But if I were to pick the top, yeah, they'd probably be all the international places.
Sure.
I'm sure that will continue after this upcoming season.
So we take you back before you started your professional career. What age did you start playing baseball, and what was it that got you into playing the sport of baseball as a kid?
I mean, my earliest memories are me playing baseball, so I'm sure I started as soon as I could. The way it was described to me, I think when I was like 2 or 3, or I don't remember this, but like one of my first birthday presents was like a wiffle ball bat, and I would just like go outside and hit the tree. I don't know. Just loved it and started watching the game, and became enamored with pitchers even at a young age. Just that idea that you're the only one with the ball in your hand, and the game kind of revolves around you, not in like an ego way, but just like how important they are. And watching at that time, growing up in the mid to late 90s, early 2000s, I mean, I would say that's as good of an era of elite pitching as there's been. I mean, it still is the case, but with the Maddoxes and Randy Johnsons and Pedros, and just watching those guys, and I was like, yeah, I want to do that. That looks cool. That looks fun. And the way I remember it is like Little League, our first game where we were able to start pitching to each other and not using a machine. I just happened to be the first one that showed up for the game. I was probably excited for it, and so they let me start as the pitcher, and the rest is history, I guess. I never look back, and that's been my whole life now, basically, to this point.
Growing up in San Diego, were you a Padres fan, or what team did you follow? You mentioned the Randy Johnson, Greg Maddox. What other players did you like watching growing up?
So it's kind of, I guess I get asked that question, and I guess it's an interesting answer. I wouldn't consider myself a Padres fan.
Sure.
I liked the Padres. I was just more into players in general. So like we had season tickets and we go to a lot of Padres games, but I don't remember ever like caring really if the Padres won or not. I just wanted to see the guys they were playing. I remember loving Trevor Hoffman. So, you wanted the Padres to be up obviously in the ninth, so he could come in and you could see Trevor time. But yeah, it was more about liking players. Then as I got older, or not even older, in 1998, the Yankees swept the Padres in the World Series, and we had tickets for Game 5. And so I was never able to go to the World Series because the Yankees swept them. And so that started a hatred towards the Yankees, which naturally turned into a love for the Red Sox.
Okay.
So I would say growing up a little bit, there was a team. I was definitely a Red Sox fan for a decent amount of time. Then when I got drafted by the Orioles, I didn't make sense to root for an in division opponent anymore. But I've always kind of been more into the just liking certain players and liking to watch good baseball and good pitchers than rooting for a team necessarily.
When in your career did you realize that you were probably going to be good enough to play professionally, or just quite frankly play past high school baseball?
That's a good question. I don't know if it was ever necessarily like a moment. At the time, Poway High School where I went was a very successful high school. There's been a lot of guys now that have made it up there from that high school that I think there was just so much confidence playing on that team that if you were just able to excel in San Diego high school baseball on a good team, you probably had a good chance. And the coaches that we had, they've been around a lot. If they were telling you got a chance, that you felt pretty good that you had a chance. And luckily was able to start getting some interest from some colleges and going to showcases and getting interest from colleges. That's kind of when I realized that, okay, there's a good chance we're going to be able to take this past high school. And obviously the goal was always to play professionally. And but yeah, I don't know if there was ever necessarily a moment where I was, okay, now I can play professionally. I was always very confident and still am very confident in my abilities. And whenever I was around, good players, I always felt like I had success. So I was like, I think I can keep doing this.
What are some of your favorite memories from playing in the Baltimore Orioles organization?
Just that first experience of like being a professional baseball player. I remember, first time I pitched, like I made my debut. We were driving, I had a pretty good outing. I was feeling good about myself and was driving on the bus ride home, and family and friends were texting me. And my first thought, this might sound stupid, was just like, I love that I don't have to go home and like do homework or, this is just what I do now. I now get to just do the thing I love just all the time. And I don't have to worry about anything else. And like that kind of early experience of, the travel and all that, it was kind of exciting because like, this is my job, is, stuff that I would be essentially doing for free is, so I would say that's probably my fondest memories, just, the people I played with and being able to face, some guys that are now very successful in the big leagues and realizing that, you competed against them and, I had some wins, they had some wins, but, you got to kind of share a field and you got to test out your abilities against them. I would say that those stuff is kind of stuff I look back on and cherish the most.
Who would be a couple of players or maybe one or two, either that you played against or that you played with that are now just absolutely thriving at the major league level that you were able to see? You were there when they were in the minor leagues.
One guy for sure that always comes to mind is I played for a full season with Mike Yastrzemski, and felt like from the start I didn't understand why he wasn't getting more love. Not trying to call it the Orioles, just
Sure.
Didn't understand why he wasn't more of a priority. He seemed like he did everything well. So, seeing him succeed with the Giants and people like, oh, it's obviously everyone knows about his grandpa, but, like, oh, it's a great story. It's like, oh, he was kind of always doing that from the second he got to the Orioles. So I didn't really get it playing with Trey Mancini and following his story and kind of how he's done. I mean, that's been cool to watch. Those were some good guys to kind of play with. Going against, a lot of guys. Aaron Judge, that was a cool guy to go against. I remember facing Yoan Moncada. Sorry if I mispronounced your name. I remember early on when there was a lot of buzz about how good he was, and like Byron Buxton, those guys, like seeing those guys early and like, yeah, these guys are talented.
Sure.
Oh, Giolito. I remember watching Giolito pitch for the first time when he was still with the Nationals organization and just being like, yeah, this guy's different. This guy he doesn't look like the rest of us down here. Same with guys like Tyler Glass now and those guys were just, some of those guys were, as good as I think we were. And I think there's not as big of a talent gap as people realize when you talk about the minors to pro. There's a couple guys that first time you see them, they just look different, whether it be a hitter, the ball comes off their bat different, or a pitcher, the ball just comes out of their hand different. And you're just like, yeah, this looks different. So yeah, those are probably a couple guys.
Sure. So Bennett, before we let you go, a couple more questions. One, it's good to know you off the field a little bit. We've talked about your career, but in your free time, what are you up to? What are you doing when you're not on a baseball diamond or training to play baseball?
Well, training to play is one of the main things right now. Like I said, I've taken a little time off, and as you get older, sometimes it takes a little bit longer to get back into it. So I've been doing that for a while now and been staying on top of that, which I think is good because I've been feeling good. Maybe not necessarily in the beginning when this all started, but so that takes up a lot of time. I started a podcast with my buddy. It's like a sports podcast, just two, pro athletes kind of talking sports, giving our takes from the standpoint of guys that spend a lot of time in locker rooms and stuff like that. And then with that, I do a lot of the editing and video editing and audio editing, which you may know is time consuming. But it's fun. I enjoy it. So that's kind of been, and then I'm coaching. I coached high school this past year and coaching like a travel team and, trying to do that. So days are usually spent in some way or another, still around baseball and talking baseball or talking sport. And yeah, that's pretty much my everyday right now.
Do you want to shout out the name of the podcast if Aces fans want to go check it out?
Yeah, it's called Riding the Bus Podcast.
Okay, awesome. So Riding the Bus Podcast, Aces fans, go ahead and give Bennett a follow there. Last thing before we let you go. What are you most looking forward to about the chance to play in Australia? Obviously, the manager, Peter Moylan, pitching coach Graham Lloyd are two of the most experienced, the most successful pitchers to come out of Australia, but both on and off the field. Why are you most excited to come play for the Melbourne Aces?
Well, I've known a lot of guys that have played over there. I actually had a buddy that played in Melbourne, and they always just had nothing but good things to say about it, and how they were always like, if you get an opportunity, you should definitely go over there and do it. From an excitement level, I'll be honest, it's more of a personal level. Like I said, I've been out of the game now for a little bit. I'm just excited to pitch again, and I'm glad I have somewhere to do that. I feel good. I feel fresh. And yeah, just experiencing a new culture, a new place I've never been to. I think it's one of the cool things where some people don't necessarily realize, playing this game, that there are so many opportunities outside of the US where you can go play, and it's really good baseball and treat you great, and it's a lot of fun. And the fans love baseball in other countries other than the US. A lot of people don't realize that. And so yeah, just experiencing that new experience. I remember the first time I went anywhere, and I went to Taiwan, and that experience, and the same in Mexico and Venezuela. And I'm sure it'll be the same, where that kind of that kind of excitement of just being in a new place, I'd
Sure.
say is probably the thing I'm looking forward to the most.
Well, Bennett Perry, really appreciate you sitting down with me to chat for a couple minutes, help Aces fans get to know you. We're really looking forward to having you on the squad this season.
Yeah, appreciate you having me.